There are secrets that have been silenced. Knowledge that never reached the public's hands because it could completely change the way we see life, the universe, and our own consciousness. Among these secrets lies the lost work of Itzhak Bentov, the mystical scientist who dared to unite science and spirituality in a unique language, so dangerous to the powers of that time that parts of his studies were confiscated and hidden. What Bentov discovered is controversial because it challenges not only common beliefs but also the rigid logic of traditional science. He said that a simple mirror, this object we all have at home, can be used as a portal, a ritual that, when performed correctly, connects the human mind to a universal frequency that governs all life. A practice that can alter the course of reality for those who execute it, bringing not only improbable synchronicities but real, tangible, and permanent abundance. And perhaps you feel something upon hearing this, an uneasiness, as if part of you already knew that life is not reduced to daily struggle, fear of scarcity, and the repetition of old patterns. Perhaps this feeling exists because, in some forgotten part of the soul, you are also part of an invisible lineage, a lineage of chosen ones, like angels in disguise walking here on earth, guarding within themselves a power that the world insists on denying. In this video, you won't hear superficial theories or ready-made self-help phrases. What I'm going to share is forbidden knowledge, hidden for decades, and that now comes to light to show that abundance is not something you need to conquer out there. It's a reality that already exists, waiting for you to open the portal to access it. Prepare yourself. What you're going to learn here is not just information, it's transformation. If you stay with me until the end, you'll discover how a simple ritual can become the key that changes everything. When we speak of Itzhak Bentov, many remember only the ingenious inventor and student of consciousness who sought to explain spirituality with almost scientific precision. However, there are layers of his story that are rarely touched upon, layers that he himself seemed to guard as a secret destined only for those who would dare to expand their perception beyond the limits of what is acceptable. In the final months before his sudden death in 1979, Bentov immersed himself in experiments that are not found in published books, not even in official lectures. In his personal notebooks, which were confiscated by the CIA under what became known as the Gateway Project, there were detailed descriptions of something he called a resonance portal. It wasn't a metaphor, but a concept grounded in his measurements and observations. A specific frequency that he identified as the heartbeat of the universe, located at 7.83 Hz. This same frequency, known today as the Schumann resonance, seemed to Bentov to be more than a natural phenomenon. It was a key, a cosmic password that connected the human mind to the invisible architecture of the universe itself. What few people know is that Bentov was not content merely to measure this frequency. He believed that consciousness could align with it in a practical way, not just contemplatively. It was then that a curious detail emerged, one that he considered essential: the use of an everyday object, mundane in the eyes of most, but which in his hands acquired a new dimension, the mirror. According to his notes, the mirror functioned as a bridge between worlds, a tool for vibrational synchronization. For him, when someone positioned themselves before an ordinary reflection, they were not just facing their own image, but facing a field of infinite possibilities. The mirror ceased to be merely polished glass, and began to operate as a reality bender. Bentov described, in an almost ritualistic manner, that by fixing oneself on their own reflection, the practitioner began to perceive not just their appearance, but the vibration emanating from behind the form. This vibration, according to him, could be trained to enter into resonance with Earth's electromagnetic field. And it was precisely at this point that the phenomenon of 7.83 Hz revealed itself in its full force, as if the human body could merge with the pulse of planetary life itself. However, simply looking at the reflection was not enough. Bentov structured a method, a way to make the mirror an instrument for expanding consciousness. He noted in detail the necessity of specific angles, postures, and mental state. It was as if, upon discovering the key, he had also constructed the lock and the exact movements to open it. This practice, though simple in appearance, carried such profound power that, according to Bentov, it could dissolve the linear perception of time and open what he described as a window to parallel worlds. A claim too bold for the science of that era, and even dangerous for power structures that saw human consciousness as territory to be controlled, not expanded. And it was precisely at this point, where the mirror ceases to be merely a reflection and becomes living geometry, that Bentov began to delve into even more daring concepts, exploring how specific angles of reflection created patterns equivalent to the human energetic field. This is where his hidden legacy begins to intertwine with something even more surprising, the sacred geometry of reflection. For Bentov, the mirror was not a passive surface. He saw there a natural technology, an ancient tool that crossed cultures and traditions but had been forgotten or relegated to the realm of the superstitious. His notebooks revealed that the reflection was a quantum portal, capable of bending spacetime when used consciously. The key lay in geometry. In his investigation, he realized that two mirrors positioned at an angle of 108 degrees generated a unique vibrational field. This number was not chosen at random. The 108-degree angle is present in sacred figures, in pentagons, and in the proportions that sustain what we call divine geometry. For Bentov, this angle was the link connecting the human body, with its toroidal electromagnetic field, to the universal design itself. When someone places themselves at the vertex formed by these two mirrors, the reflection multiplies infinitely. Each layer of the image is not merely a repetition of the physical form, but an energetic duplication, as if each reflection were a parallel version of one's own being. What seemed merely a visual effect to ordinary eyes, in his research revealed itself as the concrete manifestation of multiple realities coexisting. He said that, before this configuration, two symbolic identities presented themselves, that of the beggar and that of the heir. The beggar is one who asks, who fears, who looks at their reflection and sees scarcity, reinforcing the belief that they must struggle to obtain. The heir, on the other hand, is one who declares, who assumes before themselves abundance as a natural right. Bentov emphasized that the choice between one posture or the other before the mirrors determined not only the immediate experience but the line of reality in which consciousness would become fixed. The implications of this were profound. For, by replicating the practitioner's image in geometric patterns, the technique created a direct resonance with brain wave. He noticed, in his experiments, that the infinite reflections stimulated synchronized activity of the cerebral hemispheres, especially amplifying the theta wave range, those linked to deep meditative states, creativity, and intuition. In this condition, the perception of time dissolved, and the practitioner began to experience the present in an expanded way, as if they were diving into a field of unlimited possibilities. Geometry, therefore, served not merely as aesthetics or symbolism, but as a functional mechanism for altering consciousness. The 108-degree angle, aligned with the human body, created a mirror of the universe itself in miniature. Bentov saw this as proof that the human being, when conscious of their geometric and vibrational nature, can access realities that are normally hidden by the illusion of linearity. He used to write that great apparatus was not necessary for this discovery, but only the courage to truly look at oneself. Not the superficial gaze that seeks defects in the image, but one that recognizes the reflection as the gateway to inner and outer worlds simultaneously. And if before the multiplied mirrors the perception of infinite versions of oneself already opened up, Bentov began to understand that time also needed to enter this game. It was then that he connected the ritual of reflections with the most ancient and regulating movement of human life, the lunar cycle. Bentov always sought patterns. For him, nothing in the universe was random. Therefore, it was not enough to use the mirrors in isolation. It was necessary to integrate the ritual with the larger cycles that govern life on Earth. And among all cycles, none proved as powerful as that of the moon. He saw in it a cosmic clock, a natural metronome that affects not only the tides but also the internal rhythm of the human mind and body. This is how he structured what he called the 3 lunar phases protocol, a process that extended over 3 consecutive moments: the waning moon, the new moon, and the waxing moon. Each phase was not merely a marker in the sky but a specific opportunity to program the mirror and consciousness itself with intentions aligned with that celestial movement. In the waning moon, everything began with release. Before the reflection multiplied by the mirrors, the practitioner projected onto the field of infinite images everything that no longer served: fears, beliefs of scarcity, patterns of self-sabotage. Bentov stated that, at this stage, the mirror functioned as an energetic drain, sucking out what blocked the flow of abundance. It was as if each reflection absorbed a layer of these blockages, returning to the practitioner a greater clarity of what truly needed to be left behind. With the arrival of the new moon, the scenario changed. The void created by the release became fertile, ready to receive new seed. It was at this moment that the mirror became a field of vibrational planting. The practitioner, looking at the central point where the reflections met, placed their clear intentions of what they wished to manifest. Bentov described that, at this instant, the geometric field created by the mirrors functioned as a holographic matrix, recording on the fabric of reality the new chosen possibilities. Then came the waxing moon, the moment when intentions began to take shape. It was before the mirror that the practitioner witnessed the first manifestations, not necessarily in the physical world immediately, but in sensations, signs, synchronicities that revealed themselves almost like small warnings that the new reality was already in motion. Bentov called this anchoring, the art of recognizing the first evidence of change and reinforcing it, so that the chosen line of reality would become increasingly solid. A curious detail was the precision of time that Bentov indicated for each session: 27 minutes. This number, according to his observations, corresponded to a complete cycle of the lunar node, a kind of microcycle that mirrored the moon's larger dynamic. During this period, he instructed that the eyes remain fixed on the central point, exactly where the infinite reflections merged. There, he said, existed a microscopic black hole, a fold in the perceptive field that allowed the observer to feel the entanglement between probabilities. This protocol, when followed throughout the 3 phases, created a bridge between the human and the cosmic. Bentov believed that by aligning the mirror ritual with the dance of the moon, consciousness found a natural flow that potentiated intentions. And it was not just about believing or hoping, but actively participating in a universal mechanism that had been present since the beginning of time. But if the moon marked the rhythm, there was still a fundamental detail that amplified the power of the entire process: breathing. For Bentov, air was the direct bridge between body, mind, and cosmos, and it was from this perception that he developed what he called cosmic breathing. Itzhak Bentov understood that the human body was not merely matter, but an instrument of resonance. And, within this instrument, air played a central role. Breathing, according to him, was the bridge between the conscious mind and the invisible rhythms that sustain life on the planet. If the mirrors created the external geometry and the moon marked the tempo, it was breathing that tuned the practitioner so that the entire process vibrated in harmony. Inspired by ancient Tibetan practices, but adapting them based on his biofeedback measurements, Bentov developed a specific breathing pattern. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold the breath for 7 seconds, and exhale slowly for 8 seconds. This sequence, seemingly simple, produced a profound effect. During the retention, the electromagnetic field of the heart entered into synchrony with the Schumann resonance, and the entire body began to vibrate in consonance with the planet. But there was a detail that transformed this technique into something far beyond a breathing exercise: the visualization of the golden spiral. While the breath remained held, the practitioner imagined, not as fantasy, but as real perception, a golden spiral descending down the spinal column. This spiral activated each energy center, each chakra, not merely as mystical symbols, but as measurable vibration points. Bentov had mapped specific frequencies for each of these centers, discovering that when all were activated simultaneously, the brain produced a wave pattern that didn't fit into any conventional category. This pattern, which he called the epsilon state, was situated between theta and delta waves. It was an extremely rare state of consciousness in which perception was neither awake nor in deep sleep, but in direct contact with what he described as the pure quantum field. In this state, the mind ceased to fix on linear thoughts and became capable of directly touching the information matrices that sustain reality. Bentov reported that, during the practice, many participants in his experiments described feeling as if they were floating in a silent ocean, while simultaneously experiencing uncommon clarity. The body seemed heavy, but consciousness expanded as if it had no limit. For him, this was proof that the ritual not only influenced the brain but reconfigured the human being's relationship with space and time. Cosmic breathing, integrated with the lunar protocol and the mirror ritual, thus formed a powerful tripod: geometry, cycle, and rhythm. And each time the practitioner traversed those 27 minutes of session, their body learned to enter more easily into the state of coherence, as if being trained to remain attuned to the universal field. And even though all of this already seemed daring, Bentov didn't stop there. He believed that within the mirrors there was more than infinite reflections. There existed the possibility of dialoguing with alternative versions of oneself, versions that lived parallel realities. And it was from this perception that the idea of the multidimensional manifestation map was born. As he deepened into the ritual, Bentov began to perceive that what was revealed in the mirrors went far beyond simple reflections. He stated that each repetition of the image corresponded to a possibility of existence, timelines where the I had made other decisions, followed other paths, and experienced other realities. For him, before the multiplied field, the practitioner was not merely seeing a visual effect but was face to face with their parallel versions. These versions, Bentov said, were not distant or unreachable. They coexisted side by side, like radio frequencies broadcasting at the same time, waiting for human consciousness to adjust the dial to tune into them. The mirror ritual, in this view, functioned as the adjustment mechanism. What was seen multiplied was not mere illusion. It was a living map, a multidimensional panel where each reflection offered a route to abundance, creativity, health, wisdom, or fulfillment. It was at this point that he structured the practice of the intention hologram. The process was simple but profoundly symbolic. Write 7 specific aspects of life that one wishes to expand and place them at the center of the mirror arrangement. It wasn't merely an exercise in listing desires. It was about aligning one's own energetic field with a multidimensional model of oneself. Each word reflected infinitely formed a vibrational network, creating an information mesh that Bentov believed interacted directly with human DNA, as if the body were being instructed to vibrate at the frequency of new possibilities. He explained that, by observing the words replicated in the reflections, the mind began to convince itself that such realities already existed, dissolving the barrier between imagination and experience. This point was crucial. The brain, upon receiving infinite visual stimuli of an intention, began to encode it as truth. Bentov recorded that this phenomenon generated states of coherence where the sensation of lack disappeared, and in its place arose the concrete experience of abundance already realized. The practitioner, at this moment, began to dialogue with their own parallel versions. It was not about asking or begging for these realities to manifest, but about absorbing the qualities already existing in them. Before the mirrors, the person saw themselves surrounded by hundreds of selves that had already achieved health, prosperity, clarity of purpose, or inner harmony. By focusing on the central reflection, the practitioner made a silent agreement. They brought to themselves the vibration of the most complete self and allowed that vibration to infiltrate every cell of their body. This practice, according to Bentov, did not attract something that was outside, but allowed one to recognize and integrate what already existed in other frequencies. The manifestation map, therefore, was not an exercise in desiring, but a technology of conscious choice. He said that, in this state, the human being ceased to be merely a passenger in their own life and assumed the role of multidimensional navigator. And if the map showed the paths, there still remained one last step: to consolidate the experience in the physical body, so that the mind would not forget the new state achieved. This is precisely where the final activation enters, the moment when the invisible gains form through a material link. For Bentov, the entire process we've described up to this point, universal resonance, the geometry of mirrors, the lunar protocol, cosmic breathing, and the multidimensional map, represented only a preparation. The true transformation, he said, happened at the moment when the practitioner was able to permanently anchor the new frequency in their physical body and nervous system. Otherwise, the risk was great. A simple return to everyday distractions was enough for consciousness, even after having touched the pure quantum field, to be pulled back to the old patterns of scarcity, fear, and limitation. It was to resolve this fragility that he developed what he called the final activation. This stage was not merely a detail, but the most crucial point of the entire ritual. Without it, Bentov said, the practitioner would have only glimpses of expansion. With it, however, the transformation became irreversible. The activation consisted of an apparently simple gesture: choosing a small, discrete object, easy to carry in daily life. It didn't matter exactly what it was: a stone found on a path, a crystal bought at a fair, an old coin kept in a drawer, or even a family ring. The fundamental thing was that this object be present in all ritual sessions. Always in hand, always in contact with the body during the 27 minutes of practice before the mirrors. Bentov believed that, with repetition, the object became a kind of energetic condenser. It absorbed, session after session, the vibrational signature of the expanded state. Like a sponge, it registered the epsilon waves generated in the brain, the toroidal field of the heart, the geometric pattern reflected in the mirrors, and even the intentions engraved in the multidimensional hologram. This energetic accumulation transformed the object into what he called a portable coherence device. The power of this device revealed itself outside the ritual. At any moment in ordinary life, by holding the object, the nervous system immediately recognized the vibration contained within it and remembered how to enter the expanded state. It was as if the body had been trained to associate that physical stimulus with a specific frequency. The touch instantly activated cellular memory, and consciousness returned to alignment with abundance. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this entire process was what Bentov called the cascade effect. From the final activation, phenomena began to occur that escaped the linear logic of life. People reported extraordinary synchronicities, improbable reunions with old friends who brought vital information, professional opportunities that arose unexpectedly, creative solutions that appeared as if coming from another mind, and even physical healings that doctors couldn't explain. One example recorded in his notebooks spoke of a participant who, after completing the cycle of 3 lunar rituals and activating his object, encountered in a single day a sequence of coincidences so improbable that they completely changed his financial life. Another reported that, upon touching the stone he had used in the ritual, he was taken by an immediate sensation of calm and clarity, even in situations of intense stress. For Bentov, these accounts were not miracles, but natural signs of a mind attuned to the universal matrix of abundance. He emphasized that the ritual didn't create wealth, love, or health from nothing. These elements had always existed as possibilities around the practitioner. What the process did was remove the veil of perception, allowing the person to see and align with the flow of abundance that was already present in the quantum field. The cascade effect, then, was merely the inevitable consequence of a consciousness attuned to the real state of things. And there was still another detail that made this phase so powerful: the communal dimension. Bentov noticed that when more than one person completed the ritual, the synchronicities were not limited to the individual but expanded to close circles. Family members, friends, and colleagues also began to experience changes, as if the new frequency of a single practitioner were sufficient to reorganize the lines of reality around them. He saw in this a clue that human consciousness, when expanded, not only transforms itself but creates waves that reverberate throughout the collective field. Thus, the final activation marked the beginning of a new state of being. The small chosen object ceased to be a simple accessory and became a physical reminder that the practitioner had crossed an invisible portal. Whenever it was touched, it functioned as a switch, turning consciousness back on to the experience of full abundance. But Bentov made it clear: the object was not the source of power, only the trigger. The true power lay in the human being who dared to look at their infinite reflections and choose which version of themselves they wanted to live. And by carrying this sensory anchor with them, the practitioner not only changed their individual perception but opened themselves to a life marked by the constant flow of synchronicities. This was the cascade effect. A universe that ceased to be hostile and unpredictable to become a silent ally, responding to each step with signs, opportunities, and encounters that revealed that abundance was never absent, only covered by the limitation of the common mind. And it is at this point that the ritual finds its fullness. For if up to here we have spoken of techniques, geometries, and breaths, with the final activation Bentov demonstrated that spirituality is not merely contemplation, but living practice. The mirror closes, the reflections fade, but the new reality remains vibrating inside and outside the practitioner, like an invisible thread connecting each instant to the universal field of infinite possibilities. Remember, everything you seek, prosperity, clarity, health, purpose, creativity, already exists at some level. The ritual doesn't create anything from nothing, it only removes the veil that prevents you from seeing. The question is, are you ready to cross this portal? The cascade effect doesn't happen for those who merely listen. It happens for those who apply, for those who dare to place themselves before the mirrors and choose which version of themselves they wish to live. And you? Will you continue repeating the old patterns, or will you negotiate with your most abundant versions and bring this reality into the now? If this message made sense to you, I want you to write in the comments, "I choose abundance." I want to see who is truly willing to take this step. And of course, if you want to continue receiving teachings like this, subscribe to the channel now and activate notifications. That way, you won't miss any of the upcoming videos and continue deepening your journey into spiritual knowledge that transforms. The universe is already ready to respond. The decision now is yours.